Hello guys, welcome. Big video today. I've got my coffee, I'm ready to go. I'm gonna take a drink. Oh, it's waking me up. This is a build guide for every champion, including builds and runes and spells for every champion in Wild Rift. I used to do this in Vainglory. It took me a long time to make the video. Wild Rift has this beautiful in-game function where we can set our own builds and talk about them, so that is what I'm going to do. This took me a lot of work. I went through all the rank 1 players for every champion. I looked at their builds. I basically asked myself if they made sense, because some rank 1 players put troll builds up. I then adjusted the builds for what I feel like are the best runes in that situation, and essentially pruned every single build so that I could give you a coherent build guide for every champion in the game, so that if you want to come back and refer to it or screenshot it or just jump to that timestamp for that champion, you can do, because all the timestamps are in the description below. I put a lot of work into this video and I hope it's useful and I hope it helps you, and if it does, please feel free to like, subscribe and drop me a comment down below. Also, thanks to G2A for sponsoring the channel, and a final announcement, giving away 10 skins in April. I've decided this now, just right now decided this. 10 skins in April. You just need to like, subscribe, and comment, and you'll be in with a chance of winning. At the end of April, I'll do the draw, and on the 1st of May, I'll announce the winners. 10 skins, under 1,000 wildcores each. Get involved. Let's get into the video. Let's start with Garen then, and he's just the first champion that turned up on my list. I need coffee for this. We're gonna be going quite a while. Okay, so Garen, I like him with Black Cleaver over Triforce. You can go Triforce, of course, but his cooldown on his skills are not particularly short, so you can't proc Sheen that often. The other thing about Triforce is that when you're in Judgment, so when you're spinning around, gonna be honest with you, you don't make much use of Triforce over Black Cleaver. Black Cleaver, you'll be able to proc those stacks, you'll be able to shred their armor, which helps your team as well. So Black Cleaver into Sterak's, I love it. Then with the boot enchant, you've got 2 that you can consider. I think there are 2 really good enchants. Belt is good for the surprise gap closer. Glory enchant is good for just running them down really fast. Either are fine. If you're looking to assassinate someone with Garen's ultimate, maybe Belt enchant's better. If you're just looking to be the engaged tank, probably consider Glory. Death Stance, Guardian Angel, and then whatever defensive item suits your composition best. That Randuin's could be anything from a Thornmail to a Force of Nature, even to a Spirit Visage for extra healing. So that last item, just feel free to play around with it. Runes. You got 2 major rune choices on Garen, but I think Grasp is better than Conqueror, because as far as I'm aware, you don't actually get Conqueror stacks from your 3rd ability. So Grasp, generally better into melee matchups. Into ranged matchups, you may be struggling a little bit more, but Grasp is okay, otherwise maybe Conqueror. Then you want to go Brutal or Champion. Brutal's fine, obviously, for the laning phase. Regeneration works really nicely on Garen because he doesn't have mana, so you're going to regenerate health at all times, so you're basically getting free health regeneration every 3 seconds on top of his passive, which keeps him in lane for a very long time. Now, the original rank 1 build had Honey Fruit, but I think that's massive overkill with Garen because you have huge regeneration with his passive and you get Regeneration Rune. So going for Hunter Genius is nice because he's a very skill-based casting top laner. Like he relies on the cooldowns of his skills to be useful in team fights, so therefore I think Hunter Genius is good. And in terms of runes, either Barrier Flash or Ignite Flash are the 2 major runes that I would consider for the top lane. Boom, Garen done. Let's move on. Okay, let's move over to Lux. I've got 2 builds for Lux now. This is the mid lane Lux build. Ludens, Liandries, Rabadons, blue, purple, green book Morellos into the Void Staff. Again, Morellos can be flexed out for something like an Infinity Orb if you don't need the healing reduction. Stasis enchant is the best enchant for her on boots. In terms of runes, Electrocute, Weakness, Regeneration, Hunter Genius. Why those runes? Electrocute, she's a burst mage, so that goes with Ludens really nicely. You're bursting a single target most of the time. Weakness, if you land a binding, you're proccing your own weakness stacks, so you land a binding, you land your big basic attack, and you get 5% extra damage from that. Not many other runes can actually do that consistently, although Champion will give you 10%. If you die, that already gets dropped down to 5%, so Weakness is good in this scenario. Regeneration, just to give her the extra mana or health in the laning phase. And I like Hunter Genius because she is a very cooldown reliant mage, and so therefore giving you any extra cooldown reduction or any extra ability haste that you can is always going to be good. I've also included a support build here, even though it's called Enchanter Mage, just ignore that. This is a support build that I pulled from the leaderboard. It is Ardent into Harmonic Echoes with the Locket or the Redemption enchant. You can go for Locket or Redemption. And then they go kind of like a more AP heavy build with the Rabadon's Death Cap and the Morellonomicon. I'm not entirely sold on the Protector's Vow at the end there, but it is something that if you're just sticking at the back line with your AD carry, it makes a little bit of sense. In terms of runes, because you're in the bot lane, you're looking to poke, using Summon Ahri, again, weakness, regeneration, and also Mana Flow Band, I guess to help with alleviate some mana issues if you're not going down that Luden's build path, just to alleviate some early mana issues with Lux. But this is the build that I pulled from one of the high tier Lux support players. Let's go on to our next champion. So I pulled this Amumu build from the leaderboard, but I edited it rather heavily just because I wasn't too convinced with the Amumu build that I had. So this is a slightly adjusted Amumu leaderboard build. The AP Amumu still works, but I want to focus on jungle tank Amumu, which seems to be really taking off right now. Sunfire Cape into Abyssal Mask, into some kind of boot enchant that makes sense. Either Glory or Gargoyles or Redemption. Lots of enchants you can use. Again, something that I will impress to you across this video is that the boot enchants are super flexible. Frozen Heart, Thornmail, and then either Spirit Visage or Force of Nature. I probably would recommend Force of Nature, but it doesn't matter. Just some kind of AP resist item if you need it later on. Again, those defensive itemizations can be changed depending on the kind of composition that you're facing up against. The real core is the Abyssal Mask and Sunfire Cape, and then some kind of armor. Runes, Aftershock, you land your Bandage Toss or you land your ultimate, you're going to get a burst of resistances. Champion, just to give you that extra damage in the early game, especially with the Sunfire Cape, help you snowball. I like Hunter Titan on a lot of junglers because you're getting involved in kills across the map. And then Mastermind is still an incredibly strong rune for most junglers anyway. So those are the build paths that I've picked up for here on Amumu. Let's move on. Okay, Wukong, focusing on Wukong jungle because Wukong lane is not particularly strong. Youmuu's into GA, which is a very standard build path for Amumu still, just really loves that movement speed. Then into Black Cleaver, just to give you a little bit of tankiness and also help your ultimate shred. Then into what is apparently Spirit Visage, which just gives you a little bit of health, magic resistance, and ability haste, and then also into Sterak's Gauge as a final item. You could switch around that Sterak's Gauge. In terms of boot enchants, I would say that, you know, Amumu really benefits from something either like Hextech Belt, or he benefits from something like Glory. So just finding the right boot enchant for the situation is important. Redemption can be used as well. The reason that this player has left his boots as just the basic boot upgrades is because he knows that boots are flexible, and so boots should be adjusted to depending on the game that you're in. Lots of AD, Ninja Tabite, lots of AP, Mercury Treads. You might want Swifties. Loads of different boot options that you can take. That's why he's left this particular pickup blank. And that Spirit Visage, I think, can be changed out for lots of things. You could even build the Sterak's first, but this is the build that we have right now. In terms of runes, Conqueror, Brutal in the jungle, really good for clear speed. Into Hunter Titan, into Mastermind. I think that's, you know, Hunter Titan and Mastermind are usually the best two rune combinations for junglers there. So hopefully this helps you get to grips with Wukong a bit more. Okay, so we're going to go on to Orianna. I realize I do need to keep this going relatively quickly because we are through on to like the 5th champion. There is crap tons left to go. Okay, standard Orianna build. Seraphs, Liandry's, Zhonya's or Stasis, Rabadon's. I would say Infinity Orb before Void Staff, but it doesn't matter at that point in the game. Infinity Orb's a great pickup. Void Staff if they've got loads of magic resist. Conqueror still feels like the best rune for Orianna. Brutal, Regeneration, and Hunter Genius, all perfectly fine runes. Again, Regeneration pretty solid for either mana-hungry mid laners or people who don't really get a lot of value out of the runes that are offered on the second or on the third rune page. So this is a good build for Orianna. Feel free to use it. Let's move on to the next one. In terms of Diana, this is a build that I've seen kind of a lot of people using right now. It's Rod of Ages into Nash's Tooth, Infinity Orb, Rabadon's Void Staff. That Nash's Tooth could also be Lichbane though. The other build that I've seen people going is this build, which is like the Infinity Orb into Lichbane, which is like a much more aggressive build. Probably not jungle though. I would say probably not jungle. I don't think Diana jungle is good in any way, shape, or form. But this is another kind of aggressive build that I've seen people go, so you can use either of these builds on Diana. In terms of runes, Conqueror, if you think you're going to be going for the Rod of Ages build because you're going to be surviving a lot longer, you're looking to be elongated in team fights, or if you're going for the Lichbane build, then probably Electrocute because you're looking to kill a single target and get them killed quickly. So a couple of options there for Diana. Feel free to choose either of them because they work well. Tryndamere. I am not recommending the AP Tryndamere build. This is just a standard Tryndamere build path that's going to work well for you. This is Blade of the Ruin King into Infinity Edge into the Phantom Dancer, Bloodthirster, and GA. Now, you could, if you wanted to, switch out Phantom Dancer for something like Static Shiv if you felt like you wanted wave clear, but this is just the core kind of like 1v1 duelist Tryndamere build that's going to work out well for you. Conqueror is the best rune for him. Into a Brutal, Hunter Titan, Hunter Genius, because he does have a little bit of reliance on cooldowns, so this is a solid Tryndamere build for you to use. Can be played in the jungle, but if you don't want to play him in the jungle, you can also play him in the Baron lane with the Ignite. I think it really depends on your preference. If you want to play him in jungle or Baron lane, this build will work well in either of those lanes. Xin Zhoa. This is a guy who seems to be playing Xin Zhoa in the top lane, but Xin Zhoa primarily played in the jungle, so I'll switch that up to Smite just for clarity. Trinity Force. Into Sterak's, pretty solid 1-2 item combination. Into Death Dance, into some defensive items. There are a couple of ways that you can play him. You can play him a little bit more like Wukong with the Youmu's into the GA. But the Trinity Force is so good for Xin Zhoa, you kind of want it. In terms of runes, you can go... I really like Hunter Titan into Mastermind if you're playing from the jungle. I know some people are playing him in the top lane, but this would be my rune build path for Xin Zhoa jungle if I was playing him in the jungle. So that is Xin Zhoa. Feel free to use this build and this rune path for Xin Zhoa jungle. Don't really recommend Xin Zhoa top right now unless you know how to play Xin Zhoa really well. So if you're playing Xin Zhoa, better off playing him in the jungle. Okay, very standard Jinx build coming at you. Blade of the Ruin King first. A lot of Jinx is still building that item first. Into Infinity Edge, into Runans, Rapid Fire Cannon, and finishing off with either a GA or a Last Whisper. But Last Whisper, or rather Mortal Reminder, you're probably going to need that if you need to get some armor penetration or healing reduction. You could sacrifice the Rapid Fire Cannon for a GA if you wanted to, but I really feel like that extra burst damage, especially with the rocket, is really important, you know, before the fight begins. In terms of runes, Conqueror is still the best rune for her. A lot of high elo players taking Champion because that 10% damage in lane is really strong. Hunter Titan into Sweet Tooth just because it's very, very good for lane sustain. And Barrier Flash is the standard combo for most AD carries. So this Jinx build, pretty much universally used at the higher elos. Feel free to use it. Okay, Braum. Taking a quick look at him, very standard. Zeke's into Protector's Vow, into Ionian or Redemption. You don't need the engage enchants as Braum. He's more of a defensive peeling support. Deadman's into Abyssal, into Randuin's. You could have a Thorn Mail. Like, again, defensive items are always very flexible. Runes, Font of Life is the best rune for Braum. Don't use Aftershock. You can't proc it very easily. Weakness, because you do apply a lot of CC. I like Loyalty and Pack Hunter as a combo for most supports. In terms of runes, you probably find that more often than not, you're going to be going Heal, Flash, but you can take Ignite or Exhaust depending on what you need. All right, let's move on. So this is one of the top Jhin builds that I'm seeing out there. Infinity Edge into Boots of Swiftness with Rapid Fire Cannon. So the Infinity Edge Rapid Fire Cannon 2-item combo. Then into Last Whisper, GA, and then Phantom Dancer at the end. In terms of runes, Fleet Footwork is the best rune for Jhin overall. Gives him that extra sustain. A lot of Jhins tend to go for the Champion rune because you are a backline carry. You often don't get too close to the team fights. You shouldn't be dying too often. And then I've seen a lot of Jhins go for this kind of like heavy sustain regeneration Sweet Tooth build. I'm guessing to give you the extra sustain in lane on top of the Fleet Footwork, so you just completely out-sustain your opponent. But again, I think regeneration is a good rune for Jhin. I would maybe think about Sweet Tooth for Hunter Genius if I'm running regeneration. And again, the spells is Flash Barrier. I'm pulling these builds from the top players on the leaderboard, by the way, and I'm just adjusting them slightly where I see fit. Let's go on to our next champion. Okay, so Aurelion Sol. Let's talk about him. Rod of Ages into Liandry's into Boots. Now, I'm actually gonna. These boots weren't actually upgraded, but I'm gonna say that for the most part, you are looking to have the Stasis enchant. There we go. You're looking to have Stasis enchant on Aurelion Sol. It's usually just the best. Into Rabadon's, Rylai's, and then Morello's. Terms of runes, there are two main rune choices that you want to consider. Electrocute gives you a better laning phase, more damage application. It's much easier to apply Electrocute with your stars. Or if you're just looking for a more teamfight orientated Aurelion Soul, then you're going to go Conqueror. Those are the 2 runes that you're going to want to consider. Champion, because, you know, try and keep yourself alive, you get extra 10% damage in lane. And then you have the very heavy sustain build of Regeneration and Sweet Tooth. And I'm guessing that the Regeneration Sweet Tooth combo goes with Champion in general, because you're looking to stay alive as much as possible. And in terms of spells, Barrier, Flash, or Ignite Flash work well. Okay, let's move on to Twisted Fate. We are looking at a very, very strong Twisted Fate build with Rod of Ages into Lichbane as your main source of early damage. And then you can have... this guy goes for Belt. Now, I could go for Stasis as well. Belt or Stasis. Either or. Stasis just gives you that ability to kind of like jump forward and gold card someone. Rapid Fire Cannon for the extended range on your gold card. Rabadon's Void Staff. In terms of runes, Electrocute, Champion, and then that Champion rune combination as well with Regeneration and Sweet Tooth that I'm seeing a lot of in the ladder right now. Let's go on to our next champion. We are really going to have to pick up the pace here. Apologies about the building work if you can hear it in the background. There's nothing I can do. Just so happened that the morning that I was recording this video, every builder in the world decided to turn up. Okay, so Xayah. The Xayah build, I would recommend if you want a more in-depth explanation, go to It's Stuart's YouTube channel, which I'll link in the description below. And he'll talk a little bit about how you get to this build, because there is a certain way that you do it. You build a lot of components. But the end build looks something like this. All right, Xayah, sorry if you can hear the building work in the background, by the way. Every builder in the world decided to turn up this morning when I was recording. So we got Blade of the Rune King, Runans, into Infinity Edge, GA, and Phantom Dancer. Then in terms of runes, Conqueror is still the best rune. Brutal, I like Brutal over Champion because Xayah is an aggressive diving AD carry. It's much more likely that you're going to die than not. So Brutal just gives you that little extra edge in the early laning phase. I like Hunter, Titan into Sweet Tooth as well as my rune combinations for Xayah. If you want to find out the actual build path in terms of how you go through the components, I recommend going to It's Stuart's YouTube channel and looking up his Xayah build. It is the way that you upgrade your abilities the quickest, but I'm not going to talk about it in depth here because it would take too long and it requires a whole video by itself. So It's Stuart's YouTube channel. I'll link it in the description below. You can go and check out his video on Xayah. Okay, Evelyn, probably one of the best junglers in the game right now. This is the build that I pulled from the top end of the leaderboard, but I think that you could switch around the Rabadons and the Lichbane depending on how the game's going. But Infinity Orb, first item, 100%. Rabadons and Lichbane. And then, of course, you can go for Hextech Belt or Stasis, I would say. Morellos and Void Staff to end things off. Conqueror, Brutal, Hunter Titan, and Mastermind. Those are the runes that I would suggest for Evelyn. Very, very strong build and a very, very strong jungler. Easy enough. Let's carry on. I think Pantheon's in a weird spot. I don't think he's a particularly strong champion right now, but this is the build that I've been seeing some people go. Duskblade into Black Cleaver, Steraks, GA, and then Death's Dance with a boot enchant upgrade that makes sense, either like Glory, or you can go for Hextech Belt if you want to get that flash stun, or rather the kind of like the jump stun. In terms of runes, I think either Electrocute if you're looking for go for early single target damage, or if you're looking to be more aggressive in team fights, then Conqueror. I like Weakness because obviously when you stun someone, you're going to get a load of damage off. So Weakness, when you open up with the stun, you get that 5% damage increase. Hunter Titan, and then I would say actually not Pack Hunter. I think that must have been a mistake. Mastermind, especially if you're playing from the jungle, which I think Pantheon is best suited to jungle right now. Although, if you are playing from the top lane, then you could go for something like Hunter Genius or something like that as your final rune option. Right, let's carry on from Pantheon to our next champion. Okay, this is the rank 1 Akali build right now. This is Liandry's into Rabadons, into Infinity Orb, Morellos, and Void Staff. A lot of execution damage, a lot of magic penetration. No Gunblade, believe it or not. Not a lot of top Akalis build Gunblade. They always tend to go for the Liandry's as that first item, but pick up. Runes, Conqueror, Brutal. This guy actually goes for Spirit Walker and Hunter Genius, but that Spirit Walker could very easily be Hunter Titan or whatever you want it to be. And of course, with Akali, you want to be as aggressive as possible, so going for the Ignite Flash is just the best spell combination that you can go for Akali. Okay, let's carry on. Fiora, okay, pulled this build path from the leaderboard. This is Triforce into Death Dance, Steraks, and GA, and then whatever final item that you think is fitting for for where you are. You know, Spirit Visage is going to give you some extra healing, which is really nice with Fiora, but obviously if there's lots of armor, you might want to go for like a Randuin's, for instance. With this build, you can't go too wrong with Triforce into Steraks or Triforce into Death Dance. You really can't go too far wrong. with those item combinations. They're always going to be strong on Fiora. Runes, Conqueror, Brutal, super nice combination. Spirit Walker for the extra burst of health at the start and the slow resistance. And then also the Honey Fruit or the Sweet Tooth. Very, very strong and easy Fiora build. Feel free to check it out and give it a go in your games. Not many people playing Blitzcrank right now, but we're going to throw him in there. I like Zeke's early on Blitzcrank into Protector's Vow. It's a very standard tanky item combination. Ionian, or Glory, or even Belt for the Belt Hook combinations. But you could also go for Redemption. Lots of boot enchants you could consider. Deadman's Plate, Abyssal Mask, and Randuin's. In terms of runes, Aftershock is really nice because when you make the pull or get the knock up, you're going to get the Aftershock proc. Weakness, because you apply a load of CC, and obviously increasing the damage to the target that you pull is always good. And then the two standard support rune combinations of Loyalty and Pack Hunter work really well on Blitzcrank. Let's move on to our next. Okay, I've got two Seraphine builds to consider. This is the mid lane Seraphine build, so or maybe just the aggressive AP Seraphine build. Ludens into Infinity Orb, Rabadons, Morellos, and Void Staff. That boot enchant upgrade can go to several things. It can go to Hextech Belt, it can go to Stasis, it can go to Redemption, or even Locket, depending on what you want. Runes, Electrocute, I love Champion, just, you know, trying to keep yourself as alive as long as possible in mid lane, get that extra damage off in the early game in those first dragon fights. Regeneration and Mana Flow Band. So that's the build that I've seen the high-end Seraphine players go, but if we have a look at the support build, this is from Trottles, one of the best Seraphine players on the server. Straight into Harmonic Echoes, Redemption, Ardent Sensor, Athenes, Morellos, and then into Rabadons. With Summon Ahri, because you're poking in lane. With Weakness, to apply those to allow your team to deal damage to those you charm or you get rooted. Into the Loyalty, and then Mana Flow Band to help alleviate any mana issues. And of course, you go for the Heal Flash. Really, really strong Seraphine support build that I definitely recommend that you check out. Trottles is a very, very good player. Okay, this is the Annie build that I've been seeing, and look at this. This is a Hextech Belt first Annie. Now, the reason I like Hextech Belt on Annie is because one of the main ways that you're looking to engage is either Flash Bear or Hextech Belt Bear. So getting that early on gives you the surprise factor in that first dragon fight to just sort of like Hextech Belt in, slap the bear down, or even in the lane, and just get that big stun off and do all the damage necessary. Rod of Ages, Leandries, Infinity Orb, Rabadons, and then Void Staff. Great set of items for Annie. One of the best builds I think I've seen out there for her. Runes, Electrocute, Champion is nice for that extra damage, especially around the first Drake fight. Regeneration with just either for the health or the mana sustain, and then Hunter Genius for the cooldown reduction. You are a very cooldown reliant champion, especially on your ultimate, so Hunter Genius works out well here. Annie, also I think kind of rising up in popularity in the mid lane right now as well, so feel free to give her a shot. This is the Yasuo build that I've seen the top one Yasuo player go. Static Shiv into Infinity Edge, Death Dance, Sterak's, and then GA. This is one of the few people that I see go Ravenous Hunter, so Hunter Vampirism. So it goes for the Hunter, both the Hunter Vampirism and the Hunter Titan rune with Conqueror, and also the Sweet Tooth rune. This is probably one of the best builds out there for Yasuo, so give it a go, see how it goes in your games. Okay, this is Ahri. Ludens into Infinity Orb, and again, the boots open for enchants. You could go Spooky Ghosts, which is the Shadows enchant. You could go Stasis, you could go Hextech Belt, all of which are really good on Ahri, depending on the situation. Rabadons, Void Staff, Morellos, Electrocute, brutal for just the extra power in the laning phase. A lot of people running Regeneration right now on the mages, especially because I think a lot of the other runes aren't particularly valuable. And then also Hunter Genius. So very, very strong Ahri build. If you're looking to play Ahri, this one could work out well for you. We don't get to see a huge amount of Zed these days, but this is the Zed build that I've seen floating around. Youmuu's into Duskblade for pure burst damage. Then you also have the Hextech Belt just to give you that extra bit of movement speed or extra dash. Then into Black Cleaver and Last Whisper. So the Black Cleaver just gives you a little bit of shred to then combine with your Last Whisper into GA as well. This is a really good build for Zed. Runes, in terms of that, you know, you're looking for single target damage, so you go Electrocute into Brutal, Hunter Titan, Hunter Genius, and of course you're running the Flash Ignite. Easy as you like. I'm really ramping up the speed in this. Don't worry, next time round I'll figure out a way to make this more consistent and a little bit more speedy across the board. Difficult to find a really strong Leona build, but this is the one that I like the most. Rushing into either Locket or the Redemption enchant, then you go for the Sunfire Cape, Deadman's Plate, Frozen Heart, Thornmail, Randuin's, but of course, like, you should consider some magic resist in there. So if you need some magic resist, you could go for something like the Force of Nature over the Randuin's or the Frozen Heart or whatever. But this is a very heavy armor build for Leona. It just depends on the type of damage that you're facing up against. So just, you know, be a little flexible with those defensive items, but definitely the Sunfire Cape. You could also put an Abyssal Mask in there to find that 2-item combination, the Sunfire Cape Abyssal Mask combination, which is really strong. Runes, you need Aftershock, absolutely. Weakness, Loyalty, and Pack Hunter, very standard for Leona with the heal and the flash as well. So this is the Sona build that I've been seeing. Seraphs into Harmonic, into Athenes, and then Ardent and Rabadons with whatever enchant suits you best. Shadows, Ionian, Locket, or the Redemption. You go Seraphs because you have severe mana issues on Sona. So, you know, you need to go the tier. You could also pick up the Mana Flow Band as your final rune just to give you extra mana sustain and give you a little bit of extra AP as well. In terms of runes, Summon Ahri, absolutely, just because you're poking down in lane. Brutal, Loyalty, and then Mana Flow Band seems like a pretty good shout for Sona here. So if you're playing Sona, give this build a try. You do need the tier, though. You do run out of mana way too quickly if you don't go for the tier. So the Seraphs is obviously what you're going to upgrade that to eventually. Okay, Lulu. Very standard Lulu build. You can see that this Lulu player actually does go for the Shadow enchant, but of course, that can still be the Redemption or the Locket, depending on what your team needs. Ardent into Harmonic, into Athenes. You guys know this. They also go for Zeke's, which I don't mind as well, because obviously when you pop your ultimate, you're going to have an extra little bit of, I guess, peel for your, or buffing your AD carry, and then the Protector's Vow. In terms of runes, Summon Ahri, into the weakness, into Loyalty, and then Mana Flow Band just to alleviate any mana issues that you have in the lane, all of which are very, very good runes for Lulu. So this is just a very standard Lulu build, if I'm honest with you, and this is the one that the top player uses on the server. Really love this Shyvana build, by the way. This is a great one. Trinity Force into Blade of the Ruin King, into whatever enchant suits your team best. Now, don't be afraid to go Locket, Redemption, Glory, maybe even Belt as Shyvana. Like, all of these are okay to consider. I love the addition of the Sunfire Cape afterwards. It just gives you that extra tankiness with a little bit of burn damage that you're just going to be adding into the mix with your burnout and the burn damage from your Dragon's Breath. Force of Nature and GA, like, really, really awesome set of items here for Shyvana. Love the adapted build with the Sunfire Cape. Conqueror, Brutal, Hunter Titan, Mastermind, easy as you like. And then we're going to obviously just be using Smite and Flash as Shyvana. So you're going to see this maybe on a few junglers, but Vi is one of those that definitely likes to use it. Umbral Glaive as a first item just gives you a little early bit of damage and also allows you to clear vision out. A lot of junglers like to go for the Redemption enchant because a lot of supports still go for the Locket, or if you have like an Alistair, he'll go for Glory or for Proto Belt. Triforce, Guardian Angel, Sterax, and then Thornmail. Pretty solid Vi build, and again, you seeing that classic combination of Hunter Titan. Well, that's not even Hunter Titan, that's Backbone. I'm going to change that. I thought I changed it. Hunter Titan into Mastermind, just the standard jungle item combination with Brutal as well. Brutal, really good in the jungle, just helps your clear speed in those early levels, and this is the Vi build that one of the few top players is using right now, and I thought I would recommend. So this is Stuart's. This is Stuart's build for Xayah. Again, you heard me talk a little bit about him earlier as Kai'Sa. He is an AD carry main. This is his Xayah build. Infinity Edge, Rapid Fire Cannon, Last Whisper, Static Shiv, Bloodthirster. However, you could switch out the Bloodthirster for a Guardian Angel if you wanted to. You could be a bit flexible in terms of that itemization. In terms of runes, Conqueror, Hunter Vampirism, Hunter Titan, Hunter Genius, just getting all of those assists to ensure that you get the maximum value out of those runes. And this is the build that I see Stuart using for the Xayah. Okay, in terms of Rakan, this is a build that I think is really good. Zeke's is still one of the best first items for Rakan because of his ultimate. And then Protector's Vow, Ionian Locket, Deadman's Plate, Randuin's, and Force of Nature. Just a bit more of a tanky Rakan build here. Aftershock, Weakness, and then the two major support rune combos of Loyalty and Pack Hunter. And of course, you'd run the heal and the flash. Standard Rakan build, nothing crazy. And if you're looking to play Rakan, I would recommend following this. Okay, Camille. I had to change this Camille build up a little bit, but it's an interesting one to consider. Triforce first item. I think a lot of Camille's like to go teleport to allow them to have that split push pressure. Death Dance, Sterak's, and then some defensive itemization like Randuin's and Spirit Visage, or you could go Randuin's and Force of Nature, or even just double armor item if you're going up against a lot of AD. In terms of runes, you could go Conqueror or Grasp, but Grasp is very good for putting a lot of pressure on the 1v1 in lane. So Grasp into Champion, Hunter Titan, and Sweet Tooth with Flash and Ignite as the two main spells. Very, very strong Camille build. Really, you can't go too far wrong with a similar build to Fiora, so like Triforce, Death Dance, and Sterak's being your mainstay items. Of course, you could also go for GA, which I would recommend. In fact, I didn't even realize that GA wasn't in there, so we're just going to go bam over Randuin's. Yeah, GA definitely a really important item as well, so you can't go too far wrong with this build that you're seeing here. In terms of Jarvan, I prefer him in the jungle right now, and this is a very, very solid build. You can go a more aggressive build using things like Duskblade or Ghostblade, but just being a bit tankier for your team, I think is a good option. Black Cleaver, Sterak's, Guardian Angel. I love the Sunfire Cape like I love it on the Shyvana as well, and then either like a Randuin's or a Force of Nature, just really depending on what your team needs for some extra defensive itemization. Runes, Conqueror, Brutal, Hunter Titan, and then Mastermind, the standard jungle runes, realistically, for a lot of the junglers right now, and this works really well for Jarvan. A lot of high-tier Lee Sin players out there. This is one of the number one Lee Sin players on the server. You're seeing this build. I'm seeing a lot of Lee Sins like go the Youmu's into Triforce build just for huge damage, then into GA. They go for the Last Whisper just to give them a bit of longevity versus armor, and then picking up the Sterak's. If there's no armor, feel free to go for the Sterak's first. This is a solid Lee Sin build, though. In terms of enchants, you can go Redemption, but a lot of Lee Sins also like to go for the belt for extra mobility, so just really depends on the situation that you're in. Conqueror, and then Brutal. I see that this Lee Sin's gone for Spirit Walker, but of course you can also go for Hunter Titan, and then Mastermind as your final rune. This Lee Sin build will do you well, though. I'm seeing a lot of Lee Sins go Youmu's into Triforce as their main first two items, then GA a little later on. Okay, this Corki build, very, very simple. Triforce, Static Shiv, Infinity Edge, you've seen it before. Then you can go GA or Rapid Fire Cannon, depending. I do think Stasis Enchant is the best enchant for Corki overall, just keeping him as safe as possible, but you can also go for Quicksilver. In terms of runes, Conqueror, Champion, because Corki shouldn't die that much early on because of how safe he is in the mid lane with Valkyrie. Looks like Backbone and then also Sweet Tooth. I'm not entirely sold on Backbone. I would say something like Regeneration or Hunter Titan is probably better. So I'd say this rune build path works well for Corki. So this is the one that I would recommend that you pick up. Okay, Kennen. Right, let's take a look at Kennen's build path. This is one that I pulled from Kennen that I've played against a lot of times, and so this is a very, very good Kennen player, still one of the few people that actually plays Kennen regularly. Liandry's into Infinity Orb for just like a lot of damage, so it gives you that ability to burst people down at low HP. Stasis, I think, is just the best enchant for Kennen. You need it for his ultimate. Rabadons, Morellos, and Void Staff, just to give you that late game burst damage and a little bit of penetration and healing reduction. In terms of runes, he's gone for Electrocute, I'm guessing for the laning phase. Because Kennen's laning phase got so poor, Electrocute seems to be like the rune that a lot of Kennens are starting to pick up, but of course you can still consider Conqueror. Brutal, I like Regeneration because Kennen again doesn't have mana, so you're getting guaranteed health regeneration, and then Hunter Genius just for the cooldown reduction on your abilities. Alright, let's move on from Kennen. Alright, this is a jungler that I've been seeing played all over the place right now. This is Dr. Mundo. I'm just going to quickly switch that out to this. This is Dr. Mundo jungle. Seeing him a huge amount at the moment. Sunfire Cape into Spirit Visage into Thornmail is like the massive item combination that I'm seeing being pulled out for Dr. Mundo jungle, and it's working wonders for a lot of people that are playing it. I genuinely think he's like a super sleeper OP jungle, and people are really starting to spam him a lot. Randuin's and then Warmogs to finish up. Fleet Footwork just to give you a little bit of extra sustain and movement speed, which is really important to Mundo. Brutal, Hunter Titan, and then Mastermind. Now, you can go Spirit Walker, which was the one before. Mundo's main problem is dealing with slows, but I think it really depends. If you're going up against a lot of people that slow, go for Spirit Walker. If you're going up for a lot against a lot of hard CC, go for Hunter Titan because the tenacity will help you out. This is definitely a build path that you should be playing if you're playing Mundo right now, though. Mundo has very quickly become one of the strongest junglers in the meta, so definitely play some Mundo with this build. So this is the Nasus build that I'm really liking right now, and I thought I'd just throw it out there for you guys. Triforce into Frozen Heart. Now, I love Frozen Heart because specifically it gives you a load of ability haste. And of course, if you're in the middle of the enemy team, reducing their attack speed is really nice. Spirit Visage for the extra sustain with his passive, then also Sterax, and then GA. So it gives you a little bit of damage towards the late game as well. Grasp, or it could be Conqueror. Grasp or Conqueror work fine. Conqueror is better for team fights. Grasp is better for the laning phase. Brutal, and then heavy sustain build, because obviously Nasus has a lot of bad matchups in the top lane. You just want to make sure you survive and stack as long as possible. So Nasus, very, very strong just with this build, although I would say you have to be very good with Nasus to know how to play him effectively. Not seeing a lot of Misfortune picked up recently, but this is the build that I saw floating around here. Blade of the Ruined King into Last Whisper, into GA, Infinity Edge, and Phantom Dancer. Conqueror, Brutal, Hunter Titan, and then Mana Flow Band. I imagine just to alleviate some of Misfortune's early mana issues, but of course that could also be the Sweet Tooth rune if you wanted that to increase your sustain in lane. Misfortune, not seeing a huge amount of her though. She's not played as much as some of the other AD carries in the meta right now. I really shouldn't be showing you guys this, but if you really want to play Master Yi, this is a build. Blade of the Rune King, Static Shiv, Infinity Edge, why do I keep saying Death Dance for that? Phantom Dancer and Last Whisper. Conqueror with Brutal for the jungle, and then he goes for Hunter Titan and Hunter Genius. I'm guessing because Hunter Genius is, you're relying on your skill cooldowns a lot, so it just gives you that extra little bit of cooldown reduction, which is important. Right, let's move on from Yi very quickly. Darius. Okay, this is an interesting one because he's got the Triforce Sterax Death Dance build, so very similar to Camille and Fiora. You can also go the Black Cleaver build, but this is more of a carry-orientated Darius build. With Glory as his main enchant. Then you could go for GA, of course, but also Randuin's and something like Spirit Visage, or rather something like Force of Nature. Spirit Visage works really well for his healing as well, so you might want to consider that. Conqueror, Triumph, Hunter Titan, and Sweet Tooth. Triumph is an interesting one. When you get a dunk and get a kill, you're going to get a big burst of health back to you. It's one of the few people that I think actually can use Triumph exceptionally well. So I quite like Triumph on Darius, and I think it's a pretty solid rune to pick up. So this is a good build. Ignore all the build names, by the way. They're just the random build names that I couldn't be bothered to rename. Really just focus on the builds themselves. All right, let's move on. In terms of Graves, this is a Graves build that I saw on the top end of the ladder. Youmuu's into Phantom Dancer, into Infinity Edge, Last Whisper, and then GA with your boots upgrades, again, being flexible depending on what the situation needs. In terms of runes, Conqueror, Brutal, Hunter Titan, and Mastermind. Again, very Brutal. Hunter Titan Mastermind is like the standard jungle rune setup. So, if you're ever in doubt about what to go as a jungler, Brutal, Hunter Titan, Mastermind. It's like the standard rune setup for junglers. So this was the build from the #1 Janna player. Now, I'm not entirely sure if it's like 100% legit or a bit troll. I've adjusted it a little bit. But he goes Rod of Ages first. Now, Rod of Ages is one of the highest scaling AP items in the game. You start off with 60 ability power, and you get 10 stacks of another 6 ability power. So you get up to 120 ability power with a single item. So it's a pretty big deal in terms of ability power. And Janna actually scales really nicely with ability power as well. So it's an interesting item. It makes her a little tankier and gives her some more power with her abilities. Ardents, Shadows, Harmonic Echoes, Rabadons, and then I changed the Rhyalize into a Protector's Vow just because, again, you can be like paired up with your AD carry, get a little bit of extra AP, and it's good. Runes, Summon Ahri. I love Weakness on Janna as well. Into the Loyalty, and then Hunter Genius as well for the cooldown reduction, which is a nice setup for Janna. So we'll carry on from here. So this is a slightly adjusted Draven build from the #1 Draven player on the server called Draven. Bloodthirster into Infinity Edge, into Phantom Dancer, Death Dance, and then GA. In terms of runes, Champion, I like Conqueror into Champion. Really, like for Draven, you don't want to die, and you want to deal as much damage as possible. So Champion lines up with that. You just want to make sure if you can, at least, even if you just get one kill using the Champion rune, that rune has become useful for you, because you're going to get a load of gold and hopefully snowball the game. Hunter Titan and Sweet Tooth, and then obviously running either Barrier or Heal, depends on what your support wants to run. Often you'll see Dravens run Heal because their support is going to be more aggressive and run something like the Ignite, but this is the Draven build that I'm seeing the top players using right now. In terms of Ashe, a slightly adjusted Ashe build for the ones that I saw being played at the top of the ladder. Blade of the Ruined King into Runans, into Infinity Edge, into Rapid Fire Cannon, and then also Last Whisper. You could genuinely swap out one of those items for GA, like the Last Whisper or the Rapid Fire Cannon, but, you know, Ashe kind of lacks damage already, so just going full damage and hoping that your crowd control and your slows will help keep you safe is important. Runes, Conqueror, Weakness. I love Weakness because you auto-proc it yourself. When you slow someone, you're already slowing them, so you're going to get 5% random damage increase. It's like a risk-free way of getting a random 5% damage increase for Ashe. Hunter Titan, Sweet Tooth, and then obviously Barrier and Flash. So this is the support build from the Alistar that is the #1 Alistar on the server right now, and he's in Master tier already. Crazy that we've got some European Masters already. Glory Enchant. Straight into, so he wants the glory for the engage potential. Glory Enchant into Zeke's, Dead Man's Plate, Protector's Vow, Frozen Heart, and Randuin's Omen. Clearly, you want to shove a bit of magic resist in there if you need it, like a Force of Nature. Be flexible with your item choices, as always. Aftershock, Weakness, Loyalty, and Pack Hunter. Standard runes for Alistar. Really can't get much better than that, realistically. These are the runes that you're going to want to play with him whenever you're playing Alistar. Okay, so I love this Malphite build. This is one of my favorite Malphite builds right now. Sunfire Cape, Abyssal Mask, Iceborne Gauntlet, Thorn Mail, and then into a Force of Nature or Randuin's if you need any more armor. In terms of boots, it can be Ninja Tabai or Mercury Treads, realistically, with Teleport being your best choice of spell to be able to teleport to a fight quickly. You can run Grasp or Summon Ahri into a ranged matchup or a matchup that you don't want to trade with. Brutal. Hunter Titan and Mana Flow Band. I mean, to be honest with you, Malphite does have serious mana issues in the laning phase, so Mana Flow Band helps alleviate that. Great build. You've seen me run it on the channel before. Super strong, and Malphite's a great pick right now. Okay, so Fizz. You don't see a huge amount of Fizz players, so I've just kind of tweaked this build ever so slightly. Straight up into Lichbane, into Infinity Orb, Rabadon's Death Cap, just pure burst damage with Stasis Enchant, Void Staff, and Morello's. You want to electrocute for the single target damage. Fizz is an assassin. Triumph, because you get a little bit of extra damage on enemies that are low HP, but also just in fights, getting the extra reset for the health is nice. Regeneration, and then Hunter Genius. You could also run Sweet Tooth in a matchup that you're going to take a lot of damage in the mid lane. Fizz, boom, done. I actually did a video on this just the other day, so I'm not going to talk a huge amount about this, although I would say that needs to be switched out. I did a video on this just the other day, so I'm not going to talk a huge amount about this, but this is a very standard Ziggs build. Ludens into Liandry's, into Stasis, Rabadon's, Infinity Orb, and Void Staff, with Conqueror being a really strong rune for him in the sort of the teamfight situations, Champion, and then Regeneration and Sweet Tooth. But you could also run the Seraph's version, which you're seeing here, which is the version that I also ran the other day, which is Seraph's instead of Ludens, basically, into Liandry's, Stasis, Rabadon's, Morello's, and Void Staff. And again, Champion, you're not supposed to be dying as Ziggs, so Champion rune is just a free 10% damage in the laning phase and early on. You can also run Ignite, but you can very easily run Barrier as well, which is important also. Okay, let's get on from Ziggs. This is like the standard Gragas build that I'm seeing right now. Rod of Ages into Lichbane, into Ionian Boots, what's it called? Oblivion Orb, Rabadon's Death Cap, and Void Staff. Electrocute, Champion, Regeneration, and Sweet Tooth. Heavy sustain build for Gragas. Just really out-sustains the majority of his opponents. Really strong. And in terms of upgrade on the boots, you can go Teleport, you can go Belt, you can go Stasis, whatever the situation requires you to go. And it's either Barrier, Heal, or Ignite Heal for Gragas in the Baron lane. Seeing a lot of Nami being played recently, and so wanted to highlight the build that I have here, which is Ardence into your... well, usually you would go your boot enchant first, so probably like Ionian or Shadows or Redemption first. Ardent, Harmonic, then into... Protector's Vow, Zeke's, and Athene's. Although I like to have Athene's a little earlier on in this build, but the entire build path works. Summon Ahri, Champion again, because you're not supposed to be dying, and the early poke in the laning phase is nice. The other rune that you can consider that I love outside of Ahri, which we did see a bit of analysis on, is Font of Life, which gives you a huge amount of sustain for your team in team fights. If you land a good wave, you're going to get Font of Life applied to everybody, and it gives you a massive amount of sustain for your team in team fights. So do consider Font of Life for Nami, because it's very strong as the game progresses. But Summon Ahri if you want to poke in lane, Font of Life if you want to be much more sustain focused in team fights. This is the Katarina build that I'm seeing the top Katarina players go. Gunblade into Infinity Orb, Stasis, Rabadon's Death Cap, Morello's, and Void Staff, with the runes being the Conqueror rune to stack up in team fights, Triumph, again, to get the little bit of execute damage, but also get you the health regen, Hunter Titan, and then Sweet Tooth for the laning phase. You could also go Regeneration over Hunter Titan if you wanted to, just to give you that extra little bit of sustain in that laning phase. But Katarina's super broken right now, and this build works really well, and I've seen a lot of high elo players that are climbing with her use this build. So this is the Singed build that I kind of like. Liandry's into Rylai's with Glory Enchant, Morello's, and then just some tanky items towards the end. Winter's Approach is a very interesting one. I guess you're stacking it with your tier, so that you would go for like a tier-based build. I haven't actually considered that on Singed, but this is what one of the top Singed players is doing, so feel free to give it a try and tell me how it goes. Runes, Aftershock for when you flip them. Weakness, because I like having the extra damage once you flip them, but also if you have Rylai's, you're applying weakness stacks as well. Then Hunter Titan, and then Sweet Tooth, with Ghost and Flash being the two spells that you should be using for Singed. Ghost, Flash, absolutely every single time. For Soraka, this is an interesting... You don't really see much Soraka realistically, but I thought I'd put this one down anyway. Ardents, Harmonics, Spooky Ghosts, Warmogs for the sustain, and then Athenes and Zeeks. So the Warmogs gives you the ability to sustain your life total outside of team fights, which is important. Runes, you're looking at Summonary, of course. Weakness is an interesting one, I guess, because the silence counts and also the stun that you get from it counts. Otherwise, you also go for the loyalty, and then I'm seeing people go for the mana flow band to help with mana issues as well. Let's move on from Soraka. Ezreal massively rising in popularity right now. Manamune into Triforce, into Blade of the Ruined King, Last Whisper, and Death's Dance as a final item. In terms of runes, Conqueror, Champion. Ezreal is so safe, you shouldn't be dying, so the extra 10% free damage is nice. Regeneration and Mana Flow Band to complement your Manamune. Ezreal is a super strong AD carry right now, so definitely use this build and try and abuse him as much as you can before he eventually either gets nerfed or something else from his kit gets nerfed. It's the turbo broken Galio. He's super good right now. Rod of Ages, Liandry's, Stasis, or Belt. I like both of them. Rabadon's, and then a Lichbane, interestingly enough, for the extra massive punch, like the big old punch when you have your passive up as well, like huge amounts of damage, and Void Staff as a final item. Runes, also, Lichbane works well because if you hit someone with your charge, you get the automatic basic attack. So you have the Lichbane procced, and you're going to basic attack them for a huge amount of damage. Aftershock, Brutal, Hunter Titan, and Sweet Tooth, all great runes. All great runes, and then obviously for spells, you're going to want to have the Ignite and Flash or Barrier and Flash. Olaf Jungle, still super good. Triforce, Sterax, Glory Enchant. So you might want to get the Glory Enchant sooner rather than later. It depends. I usually try to aim for my enchant like the either first item if it's really important, or like after my first item is completed. So after Triforce, maybe I would be picking up the Glory Enchant. Deadman's Plate, sustain increase with the Spirit Visage and then Randuin's. Then in terms of runes, I do prefer Mastermind on most junglers, and again, very standard jungle combination. Brutal, Hunter Titan, and Mastermind with the Conqueror as your main spell for Olaf. Don't see a huge amount of Vayne, but I thought I'd throw this one in anyway. Blade of the Ruined King, Static Shiv, Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer, and Last Whisper with a Quicksilver or Quicksilver enchant. This is the one person that I've seen run Gathering Storm, and I guess because Vayne is so late game scaling, it doesn't matter. But Conqueror, I really don't like Gathering Storm as a rune. Like, it takes forever to get value out of this rune. I think you're better off going Champion, Weakness, or Hunter Vampirism. I'd say actually Hunter Vampirism is probably a better rune in this situation. Conqueror, Hunter Vampirism. Why on earth have we got Loyalty and Pack Hunter? Like, what is that all about? Give me a second, guys. Probably something like this. Hunter Titan, and then also the Sweet Tooth. Have no idea where we were running those runes, but hey, there we go. Vayne. This is a good build for her. Hopefully it works for you. Okay, let's take a look at Jax now. Trinity Force, Blade of the Ruined King, Sterax, Guardian Angel, and Death Dance. In terms of like the boot enchants, like you really should be flexible with them. Most of the time I'll see Jax's run Teleport, but Quicksilver is very good for team fights just in case Jax gets CC'd, which he's pretty weak to. I prefer Conqueror over Grasp just because he's all about the elongated team fights and elongated engages. Brutal, Regeneration, and Sweet Tooth, and then running either Barrier or Ignite for Jax. So let's move on to our next one. Tristana, very standard AD carry build. Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, Rapid Fire Cannon, Phantom Dancer, and then Last Whisper. Just full crit, just looking to crit as much as possible and scale up to the late game. Conqueror, Brutal, Hunter Titan, and Sweet Tooth, very standard runes with the barrier and the heal being the summoner spells of choice. Here's a build for the Devil. He is pretty strong in the 1v1, and so you can see here it is Liandry's into Nash's Tooth, Rabadon's Deathcap, Infinity Orb, and Void Staff. In terms of runes, you can run Electrocute, which will obviously give you a good amount of single target burst damage, but if you want to be really annoying, you can run Summon Ahri, which will proc with your poison, and you can just keep spamming Summon Ahri at someone in lane, and it's very difficult for them to deal with. Brutal. I personally like something like Regeneration or Hunter Titan. I really, actually, do you know what? I actually really like taking Champion in the laning phase with Teemo, because again, it's all about the early laning phase, and just getting that 10% extra damage off in the early game can be absolutely crucial. So he's a pretty solid build setup for Teemo if you want to be as annoying as physically possible. And finally, Varus. There has been a few AP Varus builds going around with Nash's Tooth, but I'm just going to show you this standard AD carry build. Infinity Edge, Runans, Rapid Fire Cannon, Static Shield with the Blade of the Rune King. Now, actually, I would probably do it like this. I would say that this is probably just the better way to kind of play Varus at this point. Blade of the Rune King first into the Runans, then into Infinity Edge. In terms of runes, Conqueror, Hunter Vampirism, Regeneration, and also the Sweet Tooth there for heavy sustain in the laning phase. And that is it. That's all of them. That's every champion. A build and runes for every champion in the game. It took me like 50 minutes to do this video. I hope it's useful to everyone that's been watching. And, you know, if you've enjoyed it, please just feel free to drop me a like and a subscribe. All these builds have come from the leaderboard. They may not be 100% correct, but I'm going to try and iterate and improve on this video every time I do it. And hopefully you found a build that you can use for your favorite champion. I'll see you soon.